Hey friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and as usual, we're getting right into today's stories. Here is your 0% idle time. I worked for a company that provides a utility truck, and one of the analytics they monitor is how long the truck stays in place with the motor on. The target number was something like 3%. I consistently was stuck in traffic due to my area being changed to the downtown area of my city, and naturally, raising my idle percent. My supervisor began constantly badgering me over the raise of my idle percent, about 10 to 12% higher now. After they decided to give me a written verbal warning, I became the most efficient truck no idler in our branch, and I brought it down to a 0% by shutting the truck off at every stop sign, red light, highway stopped in traffic, and drive-thrus, and instantly off when I got to where I was going. Now remember, this is a utility truck that is charging my 2 phones, laptop, tablet, and my various equipment's rechargeable batteries. All this juice sucking and no alternator spinning putting the power back into the truck battery, causing it to die. A lot. Now the rules the company had made it forbidden for me to jump the truck myself, so I had to call the company and they sent out a tow truck to jumpstart it for me. I could do it myself anyway and probably would have, but they are writing people up out here for petty crap. And every time I call this tow truck, it takes a minimum of 2 hours for it to show up. I began doing this multiple times a day, every day, until they figured my truck was broken. It goes to the shop, checks out, they give it back. I kill it again. They end up giving me an entirely new truck. I start killing it. I repeated this process until they gave me the 3rd truck, and the manager calls me to ask what my daily routine is. I go through the basics and add in the whole stop at red light, engine off, stop in traffic, engine off, etc. And the dude goes, "Why the f*** are you doing this?" My supervisor wrote me up for my idle time being too high, I said. This is completely ridiculous. He tossed my write-up and I'm guessing talked to the soup because I never heard a word about idle time again and I quit caring about it. I don't work for that shithole anymore. There's my dumb petty story. Thanks for reading. The day I was hired and fired by a law firm. So this is about 5 years ago. I worked as a chef at a bakery. It was my job to make everything but the baked goods. Every morning, the baker and I would walk in at about 4 a.m. and knock out all the food needed for the day. This would leave me ready to go home around 10 a.m. or so. This put us at the perfect time to deliver online orders. It was common for companies or other entities to place large catering orders with us. The baker and I would split them down the middle and deliver them on our way home. The delivery in question was for Bob, Dick, and Harry, attorneys at law. I have never delivered to BD&H before, but they were a regular of sorts. Every financial quarter, they would hold a huge meeting. This meeting would require roughly $700 of bagels and bagel accessories. The spread included 8 dozen bagels, all 10 of our flavors of cream cheese, pastries, brownies, and enough coffee to power a college dorm through finals week. My passenger seat, entire back seat, and entire trunk are filled with food. Now, BD&H is located on the 9th floor of a commercial skyscraper deep in an industrial complex downtown. Parking was non-existent. There were meters outside the building, but I knew I would need close to 10 trips to deliver all this food, and didn't have a lot of change on me. Company policy was to just pay whatever fees I needed to park and then turn in my receipts. The money would end up on my next paycheck. So the building has its own parking garage, so I pull on in. The security guard, let's call him Sam, stops me and says that the parking garage is for employees only. I happily show him my delivery invoice and offer him a bribery bagel. Never leave the store without at least 2. Sam refuses the bagel and says I can park in one of the guest spots on the bottom floor. The fee is $5 for every 30 minutes, minimum 10. I thank him and head to the bottom floor of the garage. So there are a total of 6 guest parking spots. Just 6. All of them are taken. I head back up to talk to Sam when I see an open parking spot reserved for Bob, Dick, and Harry, attorneys at law. There are cars in every spot, with many spots being reserved for employees by name. The last spot is empty and is reserved for guest of BD&H. Perfect. I pull on in. I grab the most important part of the delivery, the coffee, and head to the stairwell. I get into the elevator and hit the button for floor 9. The elevator asks for my employee ID card. Well, crud. So I try the lobby. That works. From there, it's 9 flights of stairs until I am outside the law firm of Bob, Dick, and Harry. After introducing myself, I am shown to the room where the meeting will take place. A table is set aside for me. I set down the coffee and head for trip number 2. That is when I see Sam the security guard talking to the receptionist. He runs over and starts shouting at me. "I am putting a boot on your effing car. I told you to park in guest on the bottom floor." I don't get a word in before he launches into a speech about security and how I could be hurting his building or people. That is when a very well-dressed man walks over. It so happens to be Bob, the Bob of Bob, Dick, and Harry's. Bob asks what is the problem, and soon the two are arguing. Bob says OP is delivering food for my meeting. He is allowed to use my parking spots. And Sam says, "Those parking spots belong to the building. You're leasing them like you lease this floor. I am the one who says who can't park there. He isn't an employee, so he isn't parking." "Then I am making him an employee," said Bob. "You can't do that," said Sam. "You know what? You're right. Harry, get over here." Harry walks over with an amused look on his face, and Bob says, "Harry here is the head of our HR department. Harry, hire this boy." Harry pulls out a piece of paper and scribbles, "OP is now a member of Bob, Dick, and Harry's," and signs it, then asks me to sign as well. I do so. Bob reaches over to the receptionist, who is already grabbing some things. "Here is your employee badge, your parking permit, and your elevator key card. Now please do the job I have hired you to do and deliver my bagels." Sam looks on in utter fury as I ride the elevator down to my car. 7 sweet elevator rides later, all the food is delivered. Bob and Harry meet me at the table. Bob says, "OP, you have made great strides in this company and I am proud of your work, but I feel it is time for us to part ways. Here is your final check." Bob then hands me a crisp $50 bill. Harry says, "And your severance package. Now please be sure to return your badge and card on the way out." The receptionist is sure to validate the parking pass that Sam gave me and I head on out. On the way out, Sam grins at me and asks for my pass. I place it in the machine in his station. It accepts it and lets me out for free. Sam glares at me as I drive off. My mother-in-law took my newborn baby and locked themselves in a room until the cops came. My husband, 25, and I, 24 female, got married 2 years ago. 2 weeks ago, I gave birth to our daughter. We did not tell anyone on my husband's side of the family except for one of his cousins. His family is just overall toxic and horrible. We decided to limit all contact with his mother because of her toxicity. Last Friday morning, my husband announced on Facebook the birth of our child. His mother found out through there. She blew up his phone and got very angry that he didn't tell her. We defended our decision and got into a huge argument with her. After the argument, she strangely left us alone. Friday evening, at about 7:30 p.m., there was a knock on the door. My husband opened the door and immediately slammed it shut. I asked him who it was, and he told me it was my mother-in-law. She started aggressively pounding on the door. I wanted to call the police, but my husband stopped me from doing so. I was extremely frustrated because she had the audacity to just show up uninvited. My husband opened the door and stepped outside to speak to her. I followed behind him as well. She drove 6 hours to come see our newborn daughter. I was livid. I refused to let her in the house and demanded she left the property before I called the police. She said she didn't have any money for a hotel because she spent it all on gas. I wasn't buying her BS. At this point, my husband was getting tired of the fighting. He invited her into the house to further discuss this. The first thing she said once we were inside was that she didn't like the scent of the candles we were using. We agreed to let her stay for one night. Tomorrow morning, she'd have to be gone. We ate dinner, and after we were done, our daughter woke up. She was then able to meet our daughter. Afterwards, we all went to bed. My daughter has a nursery, but since her birth, I have had a hard time letting her sleep alone in another room, so we decided to let her sleep in her crib beside our bed. Anyways, I randomly woke up at like 3 a.m. to a loud noise in another room. I checked beside me, and my daughter was not in her crib anymore. I almost had a heart attack and woke my husband. I started to panic and cry as we rushed out of our room. We headed towards our guest room where my mother-in-law was. The door was locked. I started banging on the door and my mother-in-law told me to leave. I asked if she had my daughter and she said yes. I demanded she give her back and she refused. Her explanation was that she'd be leaving in the morning and she wanted to spend as much time as possible with her only grandchild. My husband tried to break the door, but he couldn't. It seemed like she placed something in front of the door. We called 911 and cops arrived shortly after. After 20 minutes of her arguing with my husband, police, and me, she eventually stopped answering back. The cops helped us break the door and move the dresser that was placed in front of the door. After we entered the room, mother-in-law started hysterically crying and screaming. She refused to hand over my daughter. I almost attacked her, but a cop was holding me back while the two others detained her. They were able to get her to let go of our baby, and one of the officers handed her to my husband. Thankfully, she's unharmed. My mother-in-law continued to resist the cops trying to arrest her, and they had to resort to using a taser. She was arrested and taken out of the house. I threw her bags and belongings out of my house. She spent the weekend in jail, but my sister-in-law was able to bail her out on Monday. This morning, my sister-in-law called, begging for me to ask for the charges against mother-in-law to be dropped. I refused, and she confessed that she was pregnant. I told her that I didn't care, but she insisted I ask for the charges to be dropped because she didn't want her mother to be facing charges as her pregnancy progressed. I basically told her to get lost, and I didn't care what happened to my mother-in-law. I will not be dropping charges. My husband is facing serious backlash from his family. I know it's taking a toll on him, but he's blocked them and he's going no contact with all of them. His family has been making our lives hell. They've been blasting us on social media and spreading lies about us. We keep blocking them, but they make new accounts just to harass us. I just needed to get this off my chest. I just don't understand what is wrong with these people. I seriously do not understand. Anyway, friends, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button. And also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more Reddit shenanigans like this. So I'm out of here. Take care, and I'll see you next time.